Okay, hi, welcome back. So as an aside, before I jump into the recap like I normally do, I'm actually really upset right now. I'm really frustrated for a multitude of reasons. So I recorded this video once already, and I was going through my dad's phone to pull up like actual text images because there were some that just weren't very clear. Because if you remember, I was trying desperately to take them as quickly as possible because I thought I'm never going to get access to his phone again. And so a lot of them are kind of like blurry and not really easy to read. So I was going back through his phone trying to pull up messages. And while I did that, I found other ones that I forgot about, or that I didn't take a picture of for some reason, or I had never seen before. So yeah, I was like, okay, well, I have to scrap everything now because there's so much more to add. So yeah, I'm really frustrated about that. Anyway, so yeah, I had to re-record this one. So to give a recap, like I normally do, in the last video, we talked about how I looked at some of the messages. I began looking at some of the messages that were on my dad's phone. This was the day right before I left on a plane. We were talking about how his flirting was very cringe junior high. We talked about, and I should say this is really just a sample of, like a small sample of the worst of all of the messages, because some of those messages were just so incredibly cringe, but there was a lot of, identifying information in them, and so I just decided it would probably be best for me to stick with the ones that I provided. And honestly, there's not even time for me to go through all of the really cringe messages, so I guess that's just a treat I get to live with till the day I die. So yeah, anyway, we started to talk about him using an old picture of me and my cousin. And as I mentioned, I saw this picture in several different messages, and we saw this picture in several different messages that came up where he sent it to different women. He was sending it to different people in his life. And so coming off of that, I really just want to stress how much of a violation of privacy that is, okay? How incredibly violated I felt about the fact that he was using my face and my picture to try to get things from people and to send that out to people without my consent. I didn't know he was sending these pictures of me. I didn't know he was talking about me and using me in this way. It was such a violation of privacy. And it's kind of funny because I was told that I was paranoid. Okay, so like this was very upsetting to me for a multitude of reasons, but one of the biggest feelings that I actually felt during this time was vindication, because I had been told for a long time, oh, your dad can't be that bad. Like, I was very hyper cautious about taking pictures, about what pictures I sent him, even before the falling out, just because I knew he did this, and I would be like, oh, like I would see him texting someone, and I'd see like from behind him that he had sent like a candid picture of me to somebody, and it made me very uncomfortable, and I'd asked him not to do it several times. He didn't really listen to me, but I sat there and was told that I was paranoid, that like, I like, well, what's the worst that your dad could do with pictures, right? When we were estranged, I was very like, don't send him any pictures or whatever else, but everyone was like, well, like why, like what's the big deal if he has your picture? This was the big deal. Okay, I was right. So I'm just gonna kind of take a moment to claim that. It's not something I'm glad about being right about. I wish I wasn't, but I was right. Anyway, it's really funny because even in some of these messages, my mom, there's a picture that my mom of a text message my mom sent, because my dad specifically says, I have a secret photo album with every year's except those two. I think 10 and 11 also. I'd have to check. So he's talking about having a secret file of pictures of me that he keeps, which in itself is kind of a weird way to phrase that anyway. But again, I'm very particular about like what I allow of myself for other people to have. I'm very particular about that. And then my mom, like rightfully so, warned him and said, Taylor is very sensitive about pictures, just a heads up. And I'm sensitive about pictures again because of him. So my mom is very cautious and very, very kind and very understanding about this. She has always been like, okay, I will not post this unless you're comfortable with it. Let me run this past you. Let me make sure this is okay. She is very, very sensitive and respectful of the boundaries that I have set when it comes to this specific thing. My dad, not so much. And then he responded, I know, that's why I said secretly. I've been this. I started this about 10 years ago, just collected pictures and stuff of Tay, and I made an album. It's in storage. No need to stress. I was just asking. Which, like, is just so weird. Again, it's like, why do you need to call it a secret, first of all? And if you know it makes me uncomfortable, it doesn't make it any better that you're just doing it and just not telling me about it. Like, you're still doing the thing that's going to make me uncomfortable. So, like, why would you do that? Anyway, and then he made a comment about how, like, she's very private. I'm very private, as are you, talking about my mom, because both of us are not, like, super private people, but, like, kind of, you know, especially when it comes to these types of things. But yeah, so anyway, he's secretly doing this. So it's like, I was told I was paranoid. Not paranoid. Obviously not paranoid, because he knew he had to do this in secret. And then, yeah, so anyway, I see another text message as I'm going through his messages on his phone the first time around. And so I'm looking at it, and I see that he had sent a text message, because remember, I typed my name in to a search bar, and that's how I was looking through things. So I see that he sent a text message to my other cousin, who had been coming over for, I don't remember what it was now. It was like a party or dinner or something like that. She was coming over for something. And, you know, my dad had sent her this message, a secret message, and it said, hey, honey, can I ask a favor? Please take pictures of you and Tay and send them to me, please, without her knowing, of course. Thank you, honey. Shh, 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 emoji. And so, like the G that she is, she didn't do that. She came over and was like, hey, your dad asked me to do this. I'm not going to do it. And so I remember her telling me about that. And she's like my younger cousin, but I remember her telling me about that. And I was really upset because my dad and I were estranged at this point. This was in 2020, as you can see. And so we were estranged. So he literally had no right to have any of these pictures, but he wanted them. And it's just, it's interesting because I think some people, when they read that text message, might say, aw, you know, because, oh, he's just a dad who's desperate to catch a glimpse of his daughter who's not talking to him. No, okay, not only did he trample all over my boundaries that I had set with him, but again, I was right. If she had done that, if she had sent my dad that picture, you know, he got to continue to pretend that he was an active girl dad. He got to he probably would have taken that picture and he would have sent it out to a bunch of other people and been like, oh, look, I'm here with my girls, you know, something like that. He would have used our image to get something, because he never just kept these pictures just to keep them. He always used them to some end, to send them out to people, to establish credibility, those types of things. Or he would have pretended that she was my other cousin. And that's another text message that I found, because in another picture, you know, the cousin who he claimed that we adopted, right? My cousin that he said that my mom and I adopted and were taking care of. In another text message to somebody else, he had sent a picture of this other cousin. So he basically just exchanged cousins, because apparently you can exchange Polynesian girls like stock images for characters. And so he would do that. He would probably just be like, oh yeah, look, my two girls, my two daughters, you know, my entire world. He would have done that, even though, again, they're two different people, but also we didn't adopt anybody anyway. So like, none of that makes any sense. And again, he wasn't even there. We were estranged. We weren't talking. So no, I couldn't have been his world. And he was definitely not my world if he wasn't even talking to me. He wasn't even allowed in my house at the time. And then some of these pictures that I saw and that I found in text messages, I've never seen them before. You can visibly see my discomfort in some of these pictures, because you know, like, I knew they were being taken and I was kind of uncomfortable because my dad was there, and it was, you know, I was uncomfortable. So you can visibly see my discomfort in some of these images. In other images, some of them are completely candid shots, like this one that I'm going to pop up. So, you know, like, look at my face. Look at my face in that picture. I'm very, like, visibly just like, I have like kind of that Bigfoot stance on, where it's like, oh, I've been caught, but like, I'm like, what is happening? I didn't even know he had actually taken that picture. I just remember seeing him point the phone in my general direction, and I got kind of like wary and paranoid about it, because this was the first time in this picture. This is the first time I had seen him since we'd been estranged. So, the first time I had seen him, like, since 2015, 2015, and that was 2021. So that was 6 years later. So first time seeing him in 6 years, and the first thing he does is violate my privacy and pull out his phone and then take a picture of me, a candid shot of me, and then send it to some person. Okay, so like that's kind of, again, why I'm very uncomfortable about these things. I feel like, again, it's super valid, and I always feel like I have to explain myself because I was told for so long that I was paranoid, and again, like, what could your dad possibly be doing with these things? That is a problem, okay? That's not appropriate. That's not okay. Again, just because you have had your kid, like you had this kid, you had the child, I'm part him, does not mean that you own rights to my life and you own rights to my image and that you can use it however and whenever you want. That is completely inappropriate and that is not okay, all right? Anyway, sorry. So this one is going to be a little bit ranty because I'm very frustrated by a lot of these things. Yeah, and then some of these pictures he didn't even take. Okay, so like this wasn't even, he wasn't even there because he was estranged from me. So like, again, like I've mentioned a million times, we weren't talking. He was not invited to events. He was not present for my bachelor's graduation or for my master's graduation. I did not invite him, and you can see him popped up in these pictures. You can see, like, or me popped up in these pictures, not him. My uncle felt sorry for him, and my dad had done the same thing he'd done to my cousin and said, hey, can you secretly take pictures of Tay and send them to me? And so my uncle felt sorry for him and did it. And he sent him all these pictures of my graduation. He sent him pictures of like the special seating they'd got. He sent him pictures of the program. And the first thing my dad did was download those pictures and send them out to other people and say all sorts of things in those text messages that I'm going to go through in a minute because they made me really, really angry and really upset. And he still wasn't invited to my PhD graduation, even though we were not estranged anymore and we had reconnected at that point. He wasn't invited to that because something inside of me, like in the pit of my stomach, said, do not trust him. You can't trust him still. I understand that we've let him back into our lives in some capacity, but he doesn't get to see this. Like, and a lot of people, I kind of feel like, looked at me like, oh, like you're just punishing him because you're mad at him. No, I just didn't trust him around my family and my friends that were invited. I didn't want him to take any of their information. But I also really didn't want him to take the moment and make it about him because he had a horrible habit of doing that. He, not only because people, their natural inclination, I think, when they're like someone's kid is graduating, like you have a child, they've graduated, they've done this thing and it's like a momentous task. The natural inclination is to say, oh my God, congratulations, you must be so proud. And I just thought to myself, no, he doesn't get to be proud of me. He doesn't deserve to be proud of me. So I'm, like I don't even want him in that position where he's getting those accolades because again, he'll make it all about himself somehow. And I just didn't trust it. And so, as a side story, even on my master's graduation, when I graduated with my master's, again, he was not invited. I'd had this wonderful day, right? It was a really triumphant day for me because not only, I have 2 degrees under my belt now at this point. I only have 1 more to go. I was so excited. But also I'd had like a really bad knee injury and I hadn't been able to walk for a little bit. And so I was finally able to walk, but not only was I able to walk, I was given a special honor of being able to open the gates for all of the graduates to walk through for the commencement ceremony with another faculty, an honored faculty. So it was a really big deal. I was really excited. I was just super full of positive energy on that day. I was so excited. And after I walked and graduated, I went and found my family on the field. That's, what you normally do when you graduate. Went and found my family on the field. And my uncle, they're all hugging me and they're congratulating me, good job. Oh my God, we're so proud of you. And my uncle says, this is from your dad. And he hands me a card. And so it's hard because I think, especially with the card, people just the pictures are well, what harm could that possibly cause to you? I was walking through having the best day of my life, right? And I was not a thought of him in the world, not a thought of all the stress and all of the things that he had done, not a thought of him in the world. And my uncle says, here's this card from your dad. And the card is benign. Okay. I still have it. Like and I honestly, like, I put it inside of something. I never wanted to look at it again. After my dad passed, I actually ended up finding it on accident because I was looking for like certain pictures that I knew I'd put in that same spot. And I found the card, and all it says is, Taylor, hi honey, just wanted to wish you a congrats on your masters. Just wanted to reach out to you and tell you I love you so, so much and miss you so. Tell mom hi and hug Nana for me. Love you, honey. And then he signed his name. And so, like, the card is benign. And I feel like people read that card, because even my boyfriend, he read the card and he was like, well, that was nice. At least he didn't say anything bad. It's not about like the content necessarily, although it is a little bit, right? Because in this, he's not taking responsibility for anything that he had done to cause this estrangement. Instead, he's just, positive vibes, praying for you, proud of you, love you, miss you. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you love me, but you miss me because of something you did and that you've not done anything to change behaviors on or to fix. So, like, aside from that though, like, how intrusive is that on a moment that was so special to me? Like, I purposely did not invite you to this. You were not invited. You were not, because of everything. And I'm riding high, super excited. And then I get this card and my stomach just dropped. Like, I felt sick to my stomach because there was just this moment of like, what's he gonna say? Like, I got really anxious. I got really just all sorts of feelings. Anyway, I feel like I'm over explaining this. And if you don't understand why that was like not the move, then you probably have other problems. But yeah, so anyway, it was really, really frustrating and really upsetting. So that was the long aside. But anyway, so I was right? He's sending all of these pictures out to other people. I am not paranoid. To this day, I am very weird and particular about taking pictures of my friends' kids and anybody who can't really consent to having their picture taken because, when you're a child, like, and you're just taking pictures and stuff, I personally never had control over it, right? Like, and when you're a kid, you don't have control over what pictures are being taken of you. You don't have control over what's being posted of you. And it sucks. Like, it sucks bad. And, the thing is like, if I take pictures of my friends' kids, I am very careful. I do not post them anywhere. I don't send them to random people. I only send them usually to parents, like to the parents of those children. So it's like, hey, we had this cute moment. This is for you. You can keep that and do what you want with it for later. But like, for me personally, I'm, again, just very, because of, I think, my past experiences, very sensitive about that sort of thing. This isn't obviously meant to be, this has kind of become a lecture about overexposure of kids, but it wasn't meant to be that, but it is a little bit, okay? Because I really think that people need to consider more what they are putting out there of their kids, because kids are increasingly being raised in an era where they don't have privacy, really, where it's like, oh, my mom recorded this cute video of me doing something embarrassing, like doing something really embarrassing, and then like posted it out there for everyone to see, and then maybe it goes viral, and now I'm a grown-up kid, and I'm like, oh my God, like, that's out there, like, that of me is out there, and I would not have been okay with that. But also, you don't always know who's viewing it, and that's the thing too, is like, my dad, he was sending it to like a bunch of different people. He was directly sending it to people. I didn't know any of these people. I never met any of these people. All of them thought they knew me, and they may have thought that I knew about them. I had no idea who these people are. I'm reading through some of these text messages, and these people are wishing me happy birthday. They're giving me nicknames. They're asking how I am and all this other stuff. And he's sitting there telling them I'm saying hi. I don't know these people. I've never met them. I've never heard of them before. And so again, it really sucks because like, I didn't even have control over my own image. Like, I didn't have control over what about my life was put out there, true or not, because he was just doing this. So anyway, he was using these pictures to get things. And that's like, I think what the kind of core fundamental part of why this was so frustrating for me. But he was using these pictures to get things. He was using it to get sympathy, praise and accolades, and trustworthiness is kind of how I would categorize it. Here's how. So sympathy, right? We have young pictures, okay? We have pictures of me where I'm super young. And you know, it's like, oh wow, like look at your daughter. Like he looks super young in those pictures. A lot of those pictures are like pre-cancer pictures, because as I mentioned before, he had cancer. And so and he points that out in the messages, like, look how much hair I had, you know. But I'm always in those pictures, so you see me there, standing there as a little kid, just not a thought in the world, or even a teenager, and he's sitting there, you know, like he's talking about his hair, but again, he's sending pictures of me along in the process. You know, he's also in those pictures, like with those pictures, he sends pictures of him in the before times, and he's like, oh, I pushed these people away because I didn't want them to leave me, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't want them to hurt with all the things I was experiencing. So he's using it for sympathy. He's using it to, oh, poor Robert, you know, you didn't have a support system because you wanted to be strong and handle this all on your own. He's using pictures of a grave site, and like we talked about before, where he's trying to like kind of build a connection, but also it's like, you know, I love my mom so much. And like there's like a whole message where he says, I've told my mom was not a stupid woman. She knew she was leaving and needed to put someone in her place. Tay was born in April and my mom passed that October. And so he basically is saying that, like, you know, he loved his mom so much that like he needed someone to replace her, which we'll talk more about later because I have some very strong opinions about that also. Anyway, and so he would use it for sympathy, right? Like those are all very sympathetic things. He also used it for praise and accolades, which we'll go through a little bit more also, like when I start talking about misplaced pride and things. So, used it for praise and accolades. He would casually just drop, you know, the fact that I was a doctor, but then, or like my eldest made it, you know, like things like that. He casually is dropping these things about, just like kind of name dropping, you know, status and things like that. So he's using that for praise and accolades, because naturally, if you mention that your daughter is a doctor, people go, oh my God, that's so rad. That's so cool. You know, like something like that. So casually dropping that in there, casually, because it wasn't casual. We all know that he did it on purpose. But also saying things about, you know, about like we run his life. Oh, my daughters, these girls run my life, you know, like that sort of thing. Like, oh, they run my life. And then the natural response again is, oh, Robert, that's so cute that you're so involved with your daughter's life. You're such a good dad. They're so lucky to have you. Natural praise and accolades kind of follow that. That's the natural equal opposite reaction here, right? And then sends a lot of pictures of things like, look what I built. Look what I cooked. And I sitting here at this point in time, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm sitting here looking at those pictures of things that he built. And I'm like, you've never built a thing in your life. Like, I've seen you try to build things. You tried to build a dollhouse of mine one time and it went horribly wrong. And my Nana had to jump in and like help you. But yeah, so I was like, I don't know if he took that up later, but it was like, you do not know how to, like, you never knew how to build, in like, at least while I was in your life. So seeing a lot of those types of messages where he's giving people advice on how to build things. And he's also saying, oh, I can build, you know, like, look at this pottery bench I built for my daughter's mother. And look at this plant holder I built for my daughter. And look at her farmhouse table that I built for her. Like, I've never seen that table. I've never seen that living room. I've never seen any of those things because they weren't mine. It was not for me. We weren't even talking during that time. Anyway, so praise and accolades is another one that's there. Also, he would do things like casually drop, like he would mistext someone, like accidentally text someone something else. So he would be like, okay, honey, have fun at the movies. Oops, wrong person. That honey didn't exist, okay? Like, he was definitely not texting me because it's not like we were texting back and forth during that time. So he wasn't texting me, but he also wasn't texting my cousin who he claimed we had adopted. So, you know, he's casually dropping those things in there, like kind of like dropping them in there just to lure someone in to go, oh my God, like, you talk to your daughters all the time. They must really rely on you. Like, you know, and that leads us into trustworthiness and trying to establish that credibility. He's sitting there, you know, talking about how like, oh, wow, like, you must be really involved with your kids. And when we see people who are good parents, who we identify as good parents, we tend to think that they are safe people, that they are good people in general, that they are good for us. So he would very much put this persona out there that was who he was, even though he wasn't really doing the hard work to be a good parent along the way. So he also, with trustworthiness, he would use a lot of Bible quotes. He would use a lot of Jesus talk where he'd be, I'm praying for you every day and I pray for this, and sending Bible quotes to people along with pictures of me. Again, right? And so it's kind of like, oh, like, look, she's a little girl, and we're primed already to trust and to be kind of open because we're seeing a picture of a child, and then accompanying that is a Bible quote. And so it's like, well, you know, like, wow, like, you're such a man of God. So then there's that level of trustworthiness. Also, you know, he would provide familial ties. So sometimes it wasn't just pictures of me. Sometimes it was, and he'd be like, look at your sister, right? He'd be talking to people and trying to make it like, this is your granddaughter. Your granddaughter made it. She graduated. Like, things like that, where he's trying to get people to feel bought into the narrative, bought into the fact that they have that family connection. And so he would make those familial ties, but sometimes those are stock images. Again, he'd be like, oh, my cousins, they dance in Hawaii and do, the traditional Samoan dances in Hawaii. Though that's not a real image. Like, no, those are not our cousins. I think what he probably did was he went on to Google and he just typed in Polynesian Samoan dancing men and like found that, like, somewhere. He probably found it. I'm going to have to do a search to see if I can find it, and I will let you know if I can. And so, yeah, so he does that where it's like providing a bigger sense of family and connection for people. Like, I'm a part of this culture and I'm the ticket into something that's interesting and unique. Makes him more, again, trustworthy, more of a trustworthy source. Also, and then also he would act like he didn't trust many people with that. So like, naturally, if you feel like trust is being withheld from you, psychologically, we're primed to want to like pursue that trust more. That's just like a nature, like a part of our nature. So if he's sitting there saying, you know, I don't usually do this. I don't usually feel this open with people. I don't usually let people see my daughters. I don't usually let da 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 da. Like, you naturally are like, oh wow, like that's kind of an addictive feeling. Like, you trust me. You don't trust anybody else with this. I'm going to chase that. And so again, establishes that sense of trustworthiness. Another thing that he does a lot though, which really kind of irritates me, is he'll be like, you're just like my daughter. I told you you were just like her. Like, again, you're establishing that sense of emotional connection for these people. So they're like, wow, like, you know, like, your daughter's just like me. Like, oh, that's so cool. We would get along so well. And you start to picture what that would look like. And so again, like, these are all like very convoluted ways of establishing trust, but he definitely did that a lot. He did that a lot where he'd say, oh, my daughter does that. My daughter wants this. My daughter does that. She wants a Tesla too. Like, things like that. I don't want a Tesla. I've never wanted a Tesla. As an aside, if he ever told you that lie, I never wanted a Tesla. No shade to anyone who has one. It's just not my bag. And so, anyway, but yeah, so he's trying to make those connections. So he would just casually lie about things like, my daughter plays volleyball. You play volleyball? Wow, she plays volleyball too. Like, try to make those connections to, again, establish a sense of trustworthiness. So when he says something kind of outlandish and foolish later, you're more inclined to believe him. You're more inclined to stick with him and to defend him because you already trust him. There's already been an established base there. Anyway, this man is complicated. It's a deep dive for sure. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about misplaced pride here. I'm going to go to that. Going to go to those receipts. Okay, here we are. So yeah, so misplaced pride. This is just, you know, like, there's a couple of things. Well, just in general, we're going to talk about misplaced pride. We're going to talk about his weird obsession with my mom also, because that's another common theme in some of these text messages that are really weird. He was very obsessed with my mom, very obsessed with pointing out that she was white, which is kind of weird and uncomfortable. And like, people on my side who have been like, maybe you should include those in the videos. No, it's a common enough theme to where I feel like I need to point it out. Like, I would be remiss if I didn't point it out. And then also, but yeah, because I don't know how else to put that, but also that he seems kind of hung up on her. There's a couple other messages where he was like very hung up on her, and it was weird. And also I also am going to go over some of the funniest and strangest fan fiction stuff about me, that he talked about. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to get through what we can in this video. I don't want it to be too long, so I might make them into 2 separate videos. Okay, so what we're going to start with going through, actually what I want to start going through is the obsession with my mom, and like an obsession with like white people thing. Like, this must be a white people thing. So it's really interesting because you have all of these people who are like actively shipping my parents, and my mom has no idea. That's like kind of the funniest part in all of this is like I'm showing my mom some of these text messages and she's like, are you kidding me? Like, who is that? And I'm like, I don't know who that is either. But like they're sitting there like, I always hoped that you guys would get back together, like, you know, all this stuff, like, and it's so funny because they're actively like shipping them, actively being like, yeah, no, you know, there's no other woman for you, you know, you'll follow her anywhere. So like some of these messages are weird. Like when he's saying, she said, what, is my mama pregnant? He's saying that I said that, is my mama pregnant? And I said, wait, what, who, like your mom? And then, and he said that I said, yeah. And then the friend he was texting was like, oh, that went left fast. OMG, if Amber's pregnant, that would be crazy. And he said, LOL, if she's touchy like that, I'm not even going to say anything about it. And then was just making comments about, there's another one where he talks about getting my mom pregnant again. I'm trying to find that, which is super uncomfortable to go through. But like there's another, I can't even find it on here. There's another message where he talks about, you know, that I basically told him like, oh, like you should just get her pregnant and I'll take care of the baby. I'll raise the baby. Again, I can't even find it. There's just too many. He said something about like, that I said like, I'll raise the baby and just have another one. And like, I never said that. And it's actually kind of funny because when I was little, my mom was like thinking about having a second one, thinking about having another one. And I was like, no, like, I think I had to have been under 6. Obviously they were still together, but like, I was just like, mm-mm. And like, I have a vivid memory of just thinking like, no, more children is going to make this worse. Like, it was not a very well developed thought, but even as an adult, I look back and go, yeah, no, like more children would have been a very bad idea for the two of them. So I never was a supporter of like them. I was never hoping. So like, I think most people, when you talk like about their parents being divorced, most people are like, oh, I really hope my parents get back together. Like people always kind of like kids have that hope. I never hoped that. I actually always hoped the opposite. Because it just was like, I just knew they were not good together. I knew that I, again, wasn't really the hugest fan of my dad to begin with. But I just was like, no, like this is not a good match. You guys should not be together. From a very young age, I felt that way. So I never was really sad that he wasn't involved. And then he like said things about, yeah, well, I'm pretty sure there's a woman out there that's also like I. And then his friend was like, yeah, my mom, duh, LOL. And then he was like, I deserve that. I just want to be happy, you know. And then making up things about, like, he just made up a lot of things. He said, he was talking about going to Vegas. I'll probably end up getting married, LOL. And then the friend said, oh no, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. I'll be like, oh, he didn't tell you about my mom, so we gotta go, LOL. And then he's like, Coach, how am I supposed to get with someone when my mom, Tay, you, and then my cousin keep coming up? And so it's like he was acting like all of us were standing in the way. He even mentions to somebody that he feels like my mom cursed him like to never get married again. He talks about how he said, because your other mama knows I'll follow her. And then she said, LOL, Coach, how are you going to say you are going to stay then leave? You know you're going to follow her. So like basically again, like all these people are like, yeah. Yeah, and then him being like, talking about it if he went on a date, how that girl was gonna show up and like and try to crash the date and be like punk the girl he was dating. And he said, I know, you'll be like, Coach, that's not my mom. And then she said, period, as I should, LOL. And he said, LOL, I hate all y'all. You be like, you know, he has 4 daughters and he works a lot and he's broke. What do you want from him? So yeah, just like, again, him making more jokes about being with my mom. Then there's like there's some weird things about, you know, again, like white people jokes, like I was saying. So like there's one where he's like took the leftovers. There's like he sent a picture of a paper plate and he said, hey, look at those nice paper plates. Must be a white thing, LOL. My mom, and from her perspective, pretending like she's saying this. Robert, please buy Dixie only, please and thank you. Me, hey man, I know I shop for the family also. Like, he doesn't shop for the family, but my mom doesn't use paper plates, so that's like something that's weird. And then he like sent a picture of a Christmas tree in a living room with a bunch of presents, which I've never seen this Christmas tree, I've never seen this living room, and I've never seen the angel or the presents. And he said, do we need these many gifts? White people. And then the girl said, dang, coach, that's a lot, lol. The angel on the top is a white thing, lol. Which I've been told is not true, but whatever. And then, and again, that's not our angel. And then he said, I know, huh? Great-great-grandmother, passed down from generations, coach. It'll eventually go to Tay and then to my cousin. Not true. Then he also talks about, he was talking about me and how good I was, and he said, that must be the Caucasian in her. And then the person he was talking to said, lol, you're too funny, go Caucasian, hee hee. And then he said, which I always says, I'm so glad she takes after her mother Amber. Which, aw, but also, no, not okay. And then they were like, I love her and all of you, my mega. And then was saying how my mom makes great cupcakes and these are yummy. And then he sent a picture of cupcakes, which I think he was saying that my mom had made, but she definitely didn't make those ones. And then also talking about like volleyball and saying how my mom goes to those games, but she's too motherly. Like if my cousin spikes the ball on another player, my cousin will be super pumped. And then my mom will be like, now that's not ladylike, lol. I don't, and so, yeah, like, so him saying that he weirdly, this weird lie saying that he does all the cooking and that he had stolen a, Martha Stewart, like, Tupperware container from her or something, and that she noticed and was like, hey, where did that go? Did you take it? And then he blamed me for it. Again, none of this happened. So completely divorced from reality. And then, yeah, it's really bizarre. Like, there's just a lot of these messages. Yeah, you're a good guy and any woman would be lucky to have you, and like all of these types of things that kind of come up, and it's really bizarre. A lot of these are just really bizarre, and like it's fan fiction, and it's weird for my mom. Again, like I can't imagine like what she must be feeling and how uncomfortable that must be, because it's like not been married to this man for years and all of a sudden he's still talking about you. You find out he's still hung up on you. He's still talking about like wanting to get back with you and how he'd follow you anywhere, and how you aren't able to get with other women or be in a successful relationship because you're still hung up on her. Really awkward. Yeah, okay, so that is like kind of the centralized focus there. There's again a lot of other messages that I'm not going to include because there's a ton of identifying information in those. But yeah, and then him also just talking, like pretending like he and my mom would be parents to like other people. Or he's like, oh, if you had a problem, you know, she and I would get you, like, we'll pay for your car payment. We'll do this. Again, my mom didn't even know who these people were. My mom wasn't even talking to my dad during that time because she was estranged from him also. So it's just all very, very weird. It's just very, very weird and very uncomfortable. And then this moves us into talking about misplaced pride. Okay, so, a lot of this is really uncomfortable and really frustrating for me for a few reasons. So we're just going to start reading some of these messages. So in one of these messages, he says, one of these women is asking, I thought so, didn't want to be nosy. How are you? My mom and Taylor, no more questions, I promise. And he said, my girls, which, ew, I've never been your girl, but like, no, like definitely not, are doing great. Taylor will be done with her credentials for her doctorate degree next year. Okay, now I'm going to sound a little snobby for a second. This is a PSA for ear cringe for anybody who's going through their doctorate program, all right? Doctrine is something you believe in. Okay, so if you are religious, if you're Christian or something like that, and you believe in, you know, the Baptist doctrine, that's different than a doctorate, okay? A doctorate is a degree. That's something that you can actually go to school for. Doctrine is something you believe in. So if you're sitting here and he says this a lot, he'll be like, she's getting her doctrines. No, I can make a doctrine, but no, it's a doctorate is what I'm going to school for. And also credentials is like a medical term. And I'm not like, I don't know what he's told a lot of people. I do know some of it, but I don't need a credential because I'm not in the medical field. I'm not in therapy. I'm not in nursing. I'm not in any of those things. So I don't need a credential like that. It doesn't like take like hours like that, like where you have to spend, like certain amount of hours and get those signed off on. That's not how a PhD works, at least not the one that I'm in. And he knew that because I told him. So it's not like he's sitting there, being unaware. And so, yeah, so then, after the doctorate degree next year, then the lady said, "Go Taylor, woohoo, I bet you're a proud papa, nice." And then, more messages where he's talking about me going to school and where I'm going to school. And then the person says, "Glad you're there for your brother and to know your family is doing great. Yay, go Taylor. I was wondering how she and her mom were doing. I bet you're one proud papa." And that's interesting because that proud papa thing kind of comes up in a couple of different places, which really, it just really frustrates me and makes me angry. So here's the thing. And this may be a hot take. I don't think it should be a hot take, but this is my opinion. Parents should not take credit for the successes of their children. Period. Okay? I see this happen a lot, but especially with my dad, and it makes me cringe and get really angry whenever I see this happen. It should be up to the discretion of your child how much credit you actually get, okay? Because some parents were not involved at all. So like my dad was not involved. I was pulled out and homeschooled in the 4th grade because of a bad car accident that my mom had, which I can get into at another time. She broke her neck, but I was pulled out because I also was in that car accident and I was in a lot of pain also. But he told everyone that my mom pulled me out because she didn't trust anyone else to teach me. No, Robert, I was pulled out because we were in and out of hospital waiting rooms and I couldn't sit in class for long periods of time because my neck was hurting and we needed to go to doctor's appointments. So, it's really frustrating because it's like he would sit there and try to say, "Oh, we're doing it this way because of this." You were not involved in that decision. We didn't even ask you, okay? And then like he would act like he paid for my education. He did not pay for a single thing for my graduation. I have the student loan debt to prove it. I wish he had. Also, he missed all of my graduations. The only graduation that he was invited to was my high school graduation. That was it. He couldn't even be bothered to read my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation. Now, granted, I understand that that's like a super long paper. It's real long. It's like hundreds of pages long. I understand that, but you couldn't even be bothered to read my dissertation. So how are you going to sit there and try to act proud of me about the fact that I graduated when you literally didn't even do like the bare minimum? My mom proofread that paper for me I don't know how many times from beginning to end because I needed somebody to look it over. Hey, can you read this? Does this make sense to you? I want to make this make sense to people. I'm trying to make this a very approachable paper. God bless that woman. She read that paper so many times. My father couldn't even be bothered to read the abstract of the paper. So you don't then get to sit there and send out pictures of the two of us graduating saying like father, like daughter, and then have people and then sit there and collect the accolades of people saying, beyond proud, we love you, Taylor. Awesome job, brother. Huge congrats to both you and my sister. God knows that's y'all's PhD as well. That is not your PhD. That is my PhD. I was the one who sat there and wrote the papers. I was the one who sat there and did the presentations and prepared for hours doing research. You did literally nothing to help. You didn't even make it into the thank you section in the beginning of my paper that you couldn't be bothered to read. Okay? Angry. Sorry. Deep anger inside of myself that is just coming up right now. And then, other messages of people saying, way to be her role model. Like, you're such a great role model for her. And, just like things like that, where they're telling him congratulations. Like, wow, you did such a great job as a father. Oh my God, congratulations, man. Like, you must have been her biggest role model. She had such a great support team. That was you. Great job that you and her mom have raised such a wonderful daughter. He did not raise me. Again, he did not raise me. He was not there. He was not involved at all. Again, he didn't even and I sat there and I get frustrated because I read through a lot of these old text messages of him explaining what he thinks I got my degree in and what he thinks my research was about. No, I specifically told him, I would tell him, because he would ask me every time. I would sit there and tell him oh yeah, this is what my paper is about. I would try to make it as user-friendly as possible. I would try to explain it to him as easily as I possibly could. My research is about conflict and mediation. It's focusing on, the apology style of a leader, and if there's a correlation between the leadership style in an organization, the organizational context, the way that the organization is structured, and the apology that's delivered. That was what my research was about. And he's sitting here telling people, I'm trying to find that one text message that he sent, which was literally crazy. There's so many of them. Don't mind me furiously shuffling through papers right now. There's literally a message where yes, here it is, where he's talking about, he had sent my picture again to somebody else. And then he said, because they asked, how's Taylor? I don't know who this person is. I've never seen this person's name before. I don't know who this is. And then my dad says, she's doing well. She's in her last term on completing her academics for her doctorate in organizational psychology. All of that is wrong. All of that is wrong. I got my doctorate in leadership, not even organizational leadership, just leadership. Okay. And then, just the amount of words that he shoved in there to make that sound more self-important is just gross. And then he said she will do her clinicals for 6 months at Emeritus Senior Homes in West Covina under this person's name that I've never heard of before. And then that person will be signing off on her 3,000 hours. We need to do the math on this for a second, okay? So I'm going to pull up my computer calculator and we're going to do the math. And anyone who knows me knows I hate doing math. So I've really got to be full of anger and rage to be able to do this right now, okay? All right. So I pulled up a calculator. We're going to do the thing that I hate the most, which is probably going to make me super angry and frustrated. All right. So how many weeks are in 6 months? We're going to Google that. How many weeks in 6 months? Okay, about 26 weeks in a month. All right, so there's 26 weeks in a month. Let's just start out how normal work weeks work. We're going to say I work 5 days a week at 8 hours a day. All right, let's see what that looks like. So 5 times 8 we know is 40. That's 40-hour work week. Okay, cool. Now we're going to times 40, multiply 40 by 26. And that's 1,040. Nowhere close. All right, we need to amp this up. Let's do 5 times a week. We're going to do 5 days a week still. Stick with 5 times 10-hour work weeks, okay? So that's going to be 50 hours. So 50 times 26 is 1,300. Still not close. All right. So we're going to do 5 times a week. We're going to try 5 by 12. So we're going to do 5 days a week, excuse me, times 12 hours. Let's say I work 12-hour days. All right. So that is, okay. So 12 times 26 is 1,560. That is still not enough. We need to amp this up. Let's do 6 days a week. Okay. Let's say I'm working 6 days a week. No off days. 6 times 12 is 72. So 72 hours in a week. So 72 times 26 is 1,872. We are not close yet. Okay, let's try this again. So let's say we're gonna jump up my own more too, because we're taking too long and I hate math. Okay, 7 times a week. So let's say I work 7 days a week. She does not take a day of rest, okay? 7 days a week. 7 times 12 hours. So let's say I work 12 hours, okay. And then times 26 for the weeks, that's 2,184 hours. We're getting a little bit closer. All right, let's say I'm working 16-hour days, okay? So we're gonna do 7 times 16, 7 days a week. I'm working 16-hour days. And let's see, times 26, 2,912. Okay, So that just means I need to find 98 more hours somewhere to add in there. I just need to just find 98 hours, those last 98 hours, and then I've made the 3,000 hours I need to make in 6 months. Does that make sense to you? Is that mathing? Am I wrong because I don't know how to do basic math? I don't know. So yeah, again, he was not even listening to me about when I was telling him what my research was on. He's not even like listening to me when I'm telling him what my degree was on. I would sit there and explain it to him, and he would wait for me to stop talking just so he could ask why I wasn't going into MFT, marriage family therapy, why I wasn't doing that, or why I wasn't doing domestic violence and substance abuse. And well, you could do that if you wanted to, right? I don't want to. That's not something I'm interested in. That's not my skill set. That's somebody else's. Congratulations to them. And by somebody else's, I mean that's where his interests. And so he wanted to, again, try to make it seem like I was following in his footsteps, which is just so annoying and just so massive ick, okay? But yeah, ironically, his interests were marriage family therapy, which he couldn't keep a marriage or a relationship to save his life, and he couldn't establish a healthy family if he wanted to. And then also domestic violence, which, like, as I mentioned, he had a charge on, and substance abuse, which he was an alcoholic and had all sorts of other issues. So it's like those were ironically his thing that he was interested in talking about, and interested in working on. Anyway, and so he was also making up degrees and minors for me. So like, as I kind of mentioned, you heard that one family, her PhD is in organizational leadership with a minor study in cultural competency. And her mother and I are very proud of her. Like, gross. First of all. Second of all, like, you just made that up to make it sound more pretentious and more interesting, I feel, than it act like you needed to add more words to make it seem more important, and it's just really annoying. Anyway, and so yeah, he did that too. Making up degrees, making up minors, making up the fact that I have to do all these hours in clinicals, which I never had to do, and he knew I didn't have to do because I told him that. But yeah, this is honestly, reading these text messages, I felt so reassured in the way that I felt. And like, the more that I go through these things, the more that I feel like every time I felt sorry for him, every time I felt sympathy, and like maybe I was too harsh on him, like I wasn't. Like, I was totally right and justified. Anytime I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, I end up getting bitten, okay? And so it's like a big reason I didn't want him to come to my PhD graduation, which sounds really bad, I think, to a lot of people, but given the context of everything I've gone through, hopefully you'll understand that you must be so proud. I wrote the papers. I took the tests. I took out the student loans, okay? You couldn't be bothered to even do the bare minimum. And so how dare you say that you're proud of me? How dare you receive those accolades from other people telling you that you should be so proud when you're, again, not even in the thank you section. If anyone has a right to be proud, it's my mom. It's my Nana. Those people have a right to be proud of me. Even my friends, some of my friends read my paper through, my dissertation through a couple times. Like, I've had friends who've done that. My own father couldn't even be bothered to do that, yet he wants to trot me out like a show pony so he can get things from people. And then he would also send these other messages from my master's program. And mind you, again, we were not talking during this time. We were estranged. There are several pictures that he sent of us side by side. Like, he put these pictures together of him graduating with his master's, me graduating with my master's, like pictures side by side, and him saying, like, father like daughter. I'd like to welcome the newest member of our master's fraternity. Like father, like daughter. Congrats to Taylor Sega, Masters of Science in Industrial Psychology, which is not what I got my master's in, by the way. Welcome to the family. And then again, another like father, like daughter, like father, like daughter. I'd like to introduce you to this. Like, it's gross and it's really irritating. And then him sending pictures, pretending like he was there. But like the picture, again, of the program, the picture of the seat, all this stuff. Just really frustrating. You don't get to be a part of the process. You shouldn't be allowed to be a part of the process if the end result, the celebration, if you weren't even a part of the journey along the way. I just don't feel like that. There was a saying somebody said one time that really stuck with me. Like, you should eat with those you've starved with. Okay. My dad never starved with me a day in my life. He was never there for all of the hard stuff. Why should he get to celebrate with me? Why should he get to be a part of the party and accept those accolades and all those types of things? Really frustrating. Really made me very, very, very angry, if you could not tell. Anyway, this video has gone on incredibly long, so I'm going to call it here. In the next video, we're going to go over and address some of the funniest and craziest fan fictions that he wrote about me, and tie up some other loose ends. We're going to talk about, you know, like just kind of how the day ended and all of that other stuff. So thank you for joining me on this very long journey, and please remember to keep an open mind and be kind, because the truth will follow behind.